Hello and happy holidays to the wonderful ALC of Keller Williams on the Water in Sarasota. My name is Hudson Warren. For those of you who don't know me, I am a MAPS coach with a focus on bold. I am an agent like you. I run a team called the HomeWise team. We're a small expansion network covering basically the west coast of Florida, including where you guys are. And with 6 producing agents last year, we closed 206 transactions for 1.6 million in GCI. So I do what you do. And then I live a big life outside of business. I am a father of 6. We have a million animals. I'm married to an amazing human. We're a year into a massive remodel because we bought a time capsule. Like, our life is big and crazy and wonderful, and I love it. And yet that's not why I'm here today. I just want you to know who you're going to listen to for the next few minutes. So I'm here today because I was speaking with Jamie, your wonderful leader, and she wanted me to share something with you that would bring you value, knowing that obviously we're in a super crazy market. And for most of you, probably one of the weirdest you've been in. Some of you not knowing the whole makeup. Some of you have been in the business long enough that you were in the last shift many years ago and last major shift. And yet, some of you, this is probably your first time going, well, what is happening, right? And so I've been talking a lot with ALCs and top producers in general. That's kind of my thing. And the number one struggle, always, or challenge, opportunity, whatever word you want to attach to it, it all boils down to our time, uh, how we spend it, how we protect it, how we plan for it. It literally all boils down to that. And there's a lesson that I learned years ago that has always really stuck with me. And it's from one of Stephen Covey's books. It's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'll give you the habits just because I feel like that's the right thing to do when I'm talking about a book called The 7 Habits. And yet what I'm really desiring to talk about today is the actual 4 quadrants in relation to how we spend our time. All right, so I am going to share my screen, which is super weird since, you guys aren't live with me. I'm going to do it anyways, though. It's going to be great. All right. So you should be seeing my amazing handwriting right now, and you're welcome. And so the first thing I do want to do is I want to give you those 7 habits just so you can have them, right? And they'll set us up for our conversation in a little bit. The number one habit is to be proactive, not reactive. That would be very important in this market. It's going to be really easy to be like, oh, I just got to work more, or oh, this is not for me, or oh, like all this stuff, right? No, we're going to be proactive, take what we've got and deal with it. Number 2 is to begin with the end in mind. I take that as just to be very, very goal focused, goal minded. It's going to be easy some days to not want to work. Well, we need a goal that's so big and important and amazing that we will always get out and do the work, always do the little things that get us to the big, important things. Number 3 is to put first things first. And I've got a quote there, and it says, things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter least. Things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. It's those shiny objects, right? Number 4 is to think win-win in all things. That's really congruent with Keller Williams. To seek first to understand, then to be understood, that is as well. Number 6 is to synergize. So, like, in other words, like, first of all, like, you're not doing this alone, even if you're a solo agent. Like, we succeed through others. And then number 7 is to sharpen the saw. And we'll talk about that one at the end here. So here we've got the 4 quadrants. And I encourage you, if you're watching this in a place where you can write, if you write, you are more likely to remember this and do something with it if you write this down. So you could easily just make a little rectangular square, doesn't matter, and divide it into 4 pieces, right? And so these are the 4 quadrants of how we spend our time, the things that we do, right? So quadrant number 1 up at that top left is important and urgent, right? So if you're drawing this, what you would just do is urgent and not urgent are the 2 columns, and the 2 rows are important and not important. You can see it, right? My writing is interesting, and yet you can figure that much out. So quadrant number 1 is both important and urgent. Okay, that's the putting out the fires. That's that if you've ever felt like you're a Pop-Tart, like, oop, gotta do this now, oop, gotta do this now. Like, that's that. These are the deadlines. These are the time sensitive things, or at least they feel time sensitive at the time. And this quadrant, obviously you can't ignore because it's urgent and important. And yet it really, really leads to burnout. And I'm sure at some point, if you're a top producing agent, not every day has been beautiful and rosy and filled with unicorns on rainbows, right? Like, some days you are feeling burnt out. And some of you might be there more often than not. And that's what that quadrant does, right? So then quadrant number 2 is important and yet not urgent. So these are the growth-minded things. This is education and reading and exercise and family time and meditation and all of these things that we know are great and important and yet don't naturally happen in the moment because of these urgent things, right? And so this is what leads us to happiness and growth. And this relates back to the whole idea of sharpening the saw, which again, I'll give you a story on that later. Number 3 is not important and yet still urgent. That's fun, right? These are the interruptions. These are the gotta minutes. These are this is where we lose our focus, right? So this is also known as the quadrant of deception. And there are studies that have been done by people much smarter than I that have proven that when we lose, so you're in your lead gen time, right? And you're crushing it and you're doing great. And then you get a call and you take it, or you catch an email out of the corner of your eye and you deal with it, or you need to go get coffee, whatever it is. When you lose that focus, on average, it takes us 15 to 20 minutes to get back into focus. So think of how many times a day you get tripped up by quadrant 3, that you let yourself get interrupted or that the world just interrupts you. Multiply it times 15 or 20, and how much time are we losing there that could have been put somewhere else that serves us better, right? And then the last quadrant is not important and not urgent. Well, why would you spend any time there at all? Except we do, right? So that's when, and don't get me wrong, like sometimes spending time in quadrant 4 is necessary for our sanity. Like I'm a human just like you. Sometimes I just scroll social media. Sometimes I just check out with the game or a not so amazing TV show because I just need a minute. That's okay. The question is, are we conscious of it? Like how much time are we sitting in non-growth related and non-important areas? Right? So just again, it's the awareness thing. Now I would ask you, and I won't hear the answer, and yet it doesn't matter because the answer is for you, not for me. Where do you spend most of your time? As you look at this, where do you spend most of your time? And what I can tell you is that most of the time that I've had this conversation, it's been live, and I hear a lot of 3s and a lot of 4s. Every once in a while, somebody says most of their time is a number 1, and those are usually the stressed out people that like their hair's falling out, right? So, and that's okay, right? Like this is all about awareness, because what I have found over the years is that if I can just properly identify a problem, like I'm not hitting a goal or I'm not feeling fulfilled, whatever it is, if I can figure out what the problem is, it's already 80% of the way solved because I've pulled myself out of ignorance, right? Now the other question is, if we look at the most vital piece of our business, which is lead generation, right? Because whether we like it or not, like we have nothing if we don't have leads. And the market is already showing us, and Gary Keller and many other people have warned us that we will have less homes to sell in 2023, and we have more agents than ever. And while they will start to fall out, we don't know how quickly that'll happen, right? So less homes, more agents, right? So lead generation is going to be tantamount, right? Like we're going to get to do it probably more than we've ever done before if we intend to keep growing our business and our income. So where does lead generation fit? Which quadrant does it fit in? Now, what I'm normally told by a group of people or an individual is that it belongs in number 1. And yet I don't believe that, though. I mean, I believe that it does. I just don't believe that's where it actually lands. What happens is lead generation is in quadrant number 2, because in any given moment, it's not urgent. What's urgent is, oh, I got to figure out that appraisal, and oh crap, the kids have that test tomorrow, so I got to go buy this thing, and like, it's not urgent, and yet we know it's important. I don't think any of you would argue that it's not the most important piece of our business. It's just that it's the easiest piece to not do because it's not urgent. So we have a challenge, and that challenge is to create the urgency around our lead generation, especially in the market that we're in. Oh, and by the way, all of these things that belong in quadrant number 2 should be urgent, not stressful, urgent, and yet they should be happening. Like, how do we grow if we don't continue to get educated and to read and to exercise and to spend time with our family and our friends and just to reflect, right? And so I want to share a story that was in this book, and then I will, actually, I'm going to take the screen share off now because this has been weird long enough. Here's the story from the book is that there's this man who's walking through the woods and he comes across this other person who is chopping down a tree, or at least attempting to, right? He's got an older saw and he is just like, you can see that he is breaking his back and he's cutting away at this tree. And who knows how long he's been there. And yet the other person walking through the woods can see that basically like he's not getting anywhere. I mean, he's barely made a nick and he's dripping sweat and you can see he's just in pain. And the guy walking by says, "Hey, I don't mean to bother you. And yet I just wanted to ask, have you thought about stopping this and taking some time to sharpen your saw and then go back at it?" And the guy's just hacking away and hacking away and hacking away. And he's like, "I just don't have time for that. I just don't have time for that." And he just keeps breaking his back and of course getting nowhere. And I think of how many times in my life and my career I've been stuck in the busy, been like, no, I don't have time for that class. I don't have time for that book. I don't have time for that. And then wondered why a year later I'm not in a different spot. And so it's going to be really easy in this market that we're in and moving further into, because things are going to get weirder before they get anything more back to whatever we perceive as normal, right? It's going to be really easy to skip the growth stuff because we just have to work more, work more, work more. And yet I personally am such a big fan of working smarter and not harder, right? Like we don't have to just grind it out, not even in a shift. Like we can actually just be more intentional with the way that we use our time and take it truly personally. For me, I have two full-time businesses that I run, and I told you I have 6 children. Like I am, if I'm nothing else, I am very intentional with the way that I spend my time and what I put in it so that I don't work 80, 90, 100 hours a week because I refuse to. It's just, that's not a life by design to me. So I trust that you got something out of that, and that at some point you can maybe look at your time and look at your day and look at your past week or something and see where maybe you could move some of the time around, because nobody has more than you. The difference between you and whoever you view is that most successful person that you would love to emulate, the difference is simply the way that you use your time. That's it, because nobody has more of it, right? So that's one thing. Now, the second thing is I am a bold coach. Now, don't shut the video. If you made it this far and you shut it off now, that's no fair, right? Bold is coming in January. And I want to talk to you about that, because here's what I believe the misconception is. There's a couple of them. First of all, if you've been to Bold before, why would you go again? Well, if you went to the gym once and didn't go again, then you're still out of shape. You're still not healthy, right? So like, Bold is a coaching experience. And some of you may have been in the last Bold that I did in your market center. Some of you haven't. If you were, you know that I actually do hold you accountable and I will help you with things outside the room. Like I take the coaching aspect of it seriously, and yet it's not a one-time event. This is something you continue to go to. The very, very high D version of my Bold journey is that the first time I went, it was in October and I had sold 0 houses that year. I was in a horrible place in all ways in my life. And I went and some magic happened. So I kept going. So I went, so 0 when I started, and I went 15 times in a 5-year span from there. And during that time, 3 years in, I sold over 100 houses for the first time. And the 5th year in, I made over $1 million for the first time. And I also became a coach. I've gone from 1 stream of income to 6, about to be 7. I in all that time is when I got married and had children and all these things. Like, it's truly changed my life because I kept myself in the environment. So going into a shift and knowing that Bold was actually created in the last shift for top agents, for the record, top agents, not new agents. And when you guys decide to join us for Bold, you allow us to make this a top producer Bold. Like, we're not going to stop newer agents or mid-level agents from joining us. And yet everyone has a better experience when we have top producers like you, who the course was written for, in the room. So I want to challenge you to come join us for Bold, simply for the reason that it's the right thing to do for you and your business. And if you don't agree with that, I want you to have a one-on-one conversation with me. I'm a real normal person. I'm not going to browbeat you. I'm just going to ask you some questions and have a conversation, because I truly believe in my heart that if your intention is to have an amazing 2023, then that's the environment that you need to be in, and especially to kick off the year that way. Now, the second thing is I am talking to the Agent Leadership Council, leadership. And there's a couple things there. I'll be the one to say it. If you're sitting there like, no, I just don't think I'm going to do it, it's not right for me, whatever your excuse is, I challenge you to pull out the covenant that you signed to be on the ALC, because it says on there that you'll take bold every year that you're on ALC. So I would challenge you to look at that and make a decision. Are you the person who sticks to your commitments and is true to what you've committed to? Or are you the person that doesn't? And I have no judgment on your answer. I just want to make sure you're good with it. Because what I've found is if somebody is not sticking to their commitments in one area over here, usually there's other areas all over their world where they're also not doing it. And maybe it's time to look at things differently. Because what a leader does, leaders don't say, do as I say, not as I do. Leaders don't tell the market center, hey, you should all go to bold. I'm not going. A leader locks arms with their people. A leader walks together with their people. And that's who you guys are. Your leaders, your agents in your market center are watching you so much more than you could ever possibly realize. I promise you that. All right. So I want to challenge you to take bold because you know it's right. And if you somehow can't wrap your head around that, I want to challenge you to take it anyways, because it's the right thing to do for you as a leader or for the people in your market center that are watching you. And when you go and sign up for bold, as I trust that you all will, because I know you're true leaders, when you sign up for bold, I want you to get loud with it. I want you to use your influence for good. I want you to post on Facebook. If you've got, I don't know how your roster's divided. I don't know what your relationship with other agents are. I want you to have one-on-one conversations. Like, I want everybody to know that you did it, because you will be the person that creates the snowball effect. And all of a sudden we will fill that room. Last time we did it, we had 64 seats and we had 64 agents. And it's time to do it again, because the market has changed dramatically. I can talk, I promise. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, my cell phone number is 239-989-1773. Again, 239-989-1773. Reach out to me. All right. Go sign up. Go be a leader. Be intentional with your time. Let me know how I can serve you. And I look forward to seeing you in January. Take care.